In our headlines on this Monday afternoon, July 3rd, here in South Korea. The capital city is recording its hottest day of the year thus far, with the mercury soaring to 35 degrees Celsius this afternoon, while the southern parts of the country continue to see monsoon rain. Meanwhile, President Yoon ushers into office today his new lineup of a dozen vice ministers across 11 ministries and a new leader to head the Anti-Corruption and Civic Rights Commission. And Incheon opens a national museum to share with the public here the world's writing systems in hopes of raising greater awareness about their broader historical implications. Capital Seoul is set to mark its hottest day of the year thus far, with the mercury poised to hit 35 degrees Celsius this afternoon. Our Shin Se-byuk has more on the weather update here and in other parts of the nation.
The scorching heat is set to peak in South Korea on Monday. With heatwave alerts in place across most of the nation, daily highs in the central region are forecast to range from 33 to 35 degrees Celsius. In Seoul, the mercury could reach 35 degrees, making it the hottest day of the summer so far. With high levels of humidity in the air, feels like temperatures will be much higher. Meanwhile, southern parts of South Korea are receiving heavy downpours, with Jeju Island and Jeollanam the province in particular seeing heavy rain. Those regions are forecast to receive over 80 millimeters of rain on Monday alone. Expect 30 to 60 millimeters of rain per hour for Jeju and up to 40 millimeters of rain per hour for Jeollanam the province before precipitation eases off in the afternoon. And with the stationary front set to move northward, the whole nation is likely to get blanketed by monsoon rainfall from Tuesday to Wednesday, with the central region receiving up to 50 millimeters of rain per hour. The rain should taper off starting Wednesday afternoon. After that, the temperatures are expected to drop to just below the average for this time of year. But expect the heat wave to return across the country later this week, along with heavy downpours for Jeju on Friday and Saturday. And people should take care as extreme heat combined with humidity could significantly increase the potential for heat-related illnesses. The Interior Ministry is asking people to take caution when engaging in outdoor activities and to avoid being outdoors for a prolonged period of time during peak hours between 10 a.m. and 4 p.m. when heatwave alerts are in place. Shin Se-byuk, Arirang News.
At the presidential office in Yongsan on this Monday, an inauguration ceremony there ushered in a host of new cabinet members, including a dozen vice ministers across 11 ministries, ranging from foreign affairs to transport. Also among those taking office today is Kim Hong-il to head the Anti-Corruption and Civic Rights Commission. Now, while these posts need not sit through a confirmation session at the National Assembly, the post of Unification Minister, which has been handed to Kim Yong-ho, is subject to a parliamentary hearing. Meanwhile, there is talk about more reshuffling ahead, with one local media claiming the deputy ministers at the Environment Ministry have tendered their resignations. Also on the local front, more words of government reassurance for the public here regarding the safety of domestic seafood. At a related briefing on this Monday, the Office for Government Policy Coordination revealed that additional radioactivity assessments up until last Friday showed all 21 selected seafood products in their production stage were safe. Also, 75 more products in their distribution stage last week were assessed to be safe to consume. The office also pointed out that existing regulations against imports of Japanese seafood products have been in place in light of concerns following the earlier destruction of the Fukushima nuclear power plant and are not related to Japan's upcoming discharge of radioactive wastewater. And back on Sunday, the Finance Ministry had requested that its counterparts resubmit their budget plans for next year by Monday, that is today. The Finance Ministry will reportedly review the new spending plans with focus on ensuring fiscal health, essential function, minority protection and job creation. Now, this move follows a presidential pledge last week about intentions to tighten fiscal policy to allow for sustainable finance. Accordingly, restructuring is on the cards, as well as are evaluations to filter out projects with poor performance. The budget for 2024 is expected to be finalized by September. Today, that is July 3rd, marks the first weekday of this month, and Korea is looking at a number of changes in policies affecting our car purchases and overseas cash transfers, among others. Our Finance Ministry correspondent Arirang has details.
There will be some policy changes that take effect in the second half of the year. The Finance Ministry on Friday released a booklet on all of them. Some will be quite major. First, in the finance sector, the cut in consumption tax on passenger cars will be terminated starting on July 1st. The government slashed auto tax to 3.5% from 5% to boost domestic demand amid COVID-19, but will be going back to the original rate. Any movie tickets bought from July 1st will be eligible for year-end tax refunds of 30%. And starting July 4th, when transferring money overseas, the limit has been raised to $100,000 a year without the need to show proof of where the money came from. People who exceed their duty-free exemptions when traveling to Korea can now use a mobile app to report it and pay additional taxes. Meanwhile, to make the market more accessible, the registration system for foreigners looking to invest in Korean securities will be scrapped. Next, in the industry, land and transport sectors. With the revision of intelligent robot development legislation, November will see the commercialization of outdoor mobile robots. In December, to strengthen companies' response to the supply chain crisis, the industry minister will designate some of the important materials, parts, and equipment that are heavily relied on. There will also be a support system for the victims of jeonse fraud, the large deposit housing rental system. In the food sector, the government will set aside funds specifically to invest in food tech-related companies. This is going to start with $7.5 million this year, with the aim of reaching $75 million by 2027. The 1001 Breakfast Project for university students will also be expanded. More than 2.3 million students will be eligible, up from 690,000. Other measures include providing more welfare services so that those who need care have access to it. Education on and management of drugs will be strengthened too, while rehabilitation for drug addiction will be expanded to local provinces. Lee Dae-hyun, Arirang News.
U.S. authorities say the broader implications of the recently aborted armed advance into Russian territory by its paramilitary organization, the Wagner Group, have yet to be fully understood. And amid this assessment, the United Nations has attacked Russia's atrocious assault and abuse of Ukrainian children. Our Yoon reports.
Western analysts have said Russian President Vladimir Putin appears to be in a heightened emotional state and that his recent public appearances can be seen as damage control following the Wagner Group's recent failed mutiny. CIA Director Bill Burns, during his remarks in England on Saturday, said that the mutiny showed the corrosive effect of President Vladimir Putin's war in Ukraine, while the U.S. military's top general, General Mark Milley, told reporters on Friday that it's likely too early to tell the impact of the Wagner Group mutiny on Russian President Vladimir Putin. The head of the Russian paramilitary organization Wagner Group, Yevgeny Prigozhin, who led the mutiny, is now confirmed to be in Belarus. His men have been given the choice of joining him or be integrated into Russia's armed forces. Meanwhile, the United Nations has announced it has added the Russian armed forces to a global list of shame for maiming some 518 children, carrying out 480 attacks on schools and hospitals, and using 91 children as human shields.
In Ukraine, the Secretary General decided to list the Russian armed forces and affiliated armed groups under Section B of Annex 2 for attacks on schools and hospitals and for killing of children.
While the UN report also verified that Ukrainian armed forces killed 80 children, maimed 175 children, and carried out 212 attacks on schools and hospitals, the Ukrainian armed forces are not on the global offenders list. And amid fears that Russia might blow up the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant, Ukraine is holding drills to prepare emergency services with how to deal with a potential radioactive disaster. Yoon, Arirang News.
Over in France, hundreds have been arrested amid rampant violent protests across the nation there in response to a police shooting of a teenager last week. Our Isingje has the latest.
On the fifth night of nationwide violence in France on Saturday, sparked by the police killing of a teenager of North African descent last Tuesday, police say more than 700 people were arrested nationwide. Tens of thousands of police were deployed across the country on Saturday after the funeral of the teenager in the Paris suburb of Nanterre. Despite the ongoing violence, French Interior Minister Gérald Darmanin said Sunday that the fifth night was a calmer night thanks to the resolute action of the security forces. France's military police force began mobilizing armored vehicles onto streets starting on the fourth night of unrest, and several suburbs of Paris imposed a 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. curfew until Monday. Meanwhile, rioters targeted the home of a Paris suburb mayor on Saturday, ramming a car into the entrance to his home before setting the car on fire. The mayor was out attending a town hall meeting. However, his wife and children were targeted with fireworks by rioters as they began to escape. The mayor's wife suffered a broken leg while one of the children was hurt as well. A local prosecutor said the incident qualified as attempted murder, adding that all measures will be taken to arrest those responsible. In the hopes of quelling the violence, PSG star and French national team captain Kylian Mbappé has appealed for calm. Mbappé said that while he understands the rage people feel at the death of the teenager, the time for violence must cease to give way to that of mourning, dialogue, and reconstruction. 이승재, Arirang News.
A special Korean task force has landed in Canada to join a global battle against the country's worst wildfires on record. The 151-member team includes firefighters, emergency workers and medical personnel who left Korea earlier on Sunday for a mission that will last until August 3rd. Upon arriving in the capital city of Ottawa, the team headed to Maniwaki in Quebec for related training before deployment to Le Bel-sur-Quevillon, that is, one of the worst hit regions. The Korean team joins its counterparts from countries including the US, Australia, New Zealand and France. Meanwhile, on the football field in Thailand, Team Korea finished runner-up in the Under-17 Asian Cup following its loss of 3-0 to Japan on Sunday. The Taeguk Warriors were left with an uphill battle when defender Ko Jong-hyun was sent off field in the 44th minute. Japan took the lead from the resulting free kick before adding 2 more goals in the second half. With its latest Under-17 Asian Cup title, Japan now holds a record 4 Under-17 Asian Cups. Team Korea, for its part, has secured an automatic ticket to the Under-17 World Cup. Over in Incheon here in Korea, the city has opened its first national museum, one dedicated to sharing the world's writing systems and better understanding their historical implications. My colleague Choi Soo-young has more.
On Friday, June 30th, the National Museum of World Writing Systems opened in Incheon, South Korea, becoming the third museum of its kind in the world. Following France and China, the museum will serve as a global center for research and exhibition on writing systems by emphasizing its uniqueness.
While France focuses on deciphering and showcasing world scripts, and China highlights the history of Chinese characters and ethnic minority scripts, our museum explores the emergence of human culture through various writing systems and aims to promote a deeper understanding of Hangul.
The most noteworthy permanent exhibits include a tablet of roundup from around 2000 BC, the counterpick jar from 664 BC, and the Book of Joshua, the 42-line Gutenberg Bible for the year 1454. The tablets contain an Akkadian cuneiform inscription of an ancient flood story of West Asia compared to the biblical story of Noah often. Especially, the Book of Joshua exhibited in the museum is exclusively held by the National Museum of World Writing Systems. Furthermore, this museum not only offers visual exhibitions but also incorporates a multi-sensory experiential approach, allowing visitors to directly touch replica exhibits and experience more vivid viewing through advanced digital images.
We came here because it's a time when children are getting familiar with letters and they have a lot of curiosity. By experiencing it here, they will naturally become interested in various scripts, including Hangul, as well as other languages.
The exhibition showcases a variety of artifacts from 55 different writing systems, including cuneiform, hieroglyphs, Chinese characters, and Hangul. in the order of language evolution. In the special expression room, visitors can share their thoughts by comparing the advantages of writing and non-writing systems. The outdoor exhibition features reinterpretations of artworks inspired by writing systems aimed to attract more visitors.
The museum has an open design and is connected to a spacious park. It is free to enter, so citizens can easily enjoy its displays.
Incheon City will host various cultural events here until July 6th to celebrate its opening. Choi Soo-hyung, Arirang News.
A Korean ballerina and a baritone are among the latest to leave their mark on the global stage and to garner broader acclaim of the potential of performers here in the country. Our culture correspondent Song Yoo-jin has more.
With elegant arm gestures, light jumps, and elegant twirls, Korean ballerina Kang Mi-sun claimed this year's Benoit de la Danse, often referred to as the Oscars of dance. Kang, the principal dancer at Universal Ballet, one of Korea's top 2 professional ballet companies, has become the 5th Korean dancer to win this award. What makes her victory even more remarkable is that she achieved it through a Korean original ballet piece called 미리네길, where she portrays the deep sorrow of a widowed woman.
I always thought I could do better, so I've always strived to perfect those flaws within me. And before I knew it, 20 years have just flown by. I hope to become someone who can make a positive impact, someone who can lend a helping hand to young ballerinas.
But Kang's win was not the only good bit of news in the Korean arts industry. A few weeks ago, baritone singer Kim Tae-han made history as the first Asian male to win the esteemed Queen Elizabeth competition. And last year, pianist Im Yoon-chan became the youngest ever winner of the Van Cliburn International Piano Competition. In the past, it was uncommon to see Koreans or even Asians rise to the top in international competitions, given the Western origins of ballet and classical music. Then, what's the secret behind their success?
Competitions these days don't just focus on technical aspects. They also evaluate artistic expression. From a young age, Korean artists devote themselves to mastering both technical proficiency and artistic brilliance. Their rigorous training process and participation in numerous competitions at home have shaped them into remarkable talents.
But while these individual achievements shine a spotlight on the arts and spur public interest, it's essential to address the broader needs of the industry.
To establish a thriving arts scene in South Korea, we not only need exceptionally talented individual artists, but also world-class orchestras, dance companies, and a solid funding system to support these talents. Unfortunately, Korea has a tendency of focusing only on competition results and trophies, overlooking the significance of expanding the reach of the arts.
These efforts will pave the way for future Kang Mi-suns and Kim Tae-hans to emerge. Song Yoo-jin, Arirang News.
Let's take a look at what's going on in the world now. In the United States, at least 2 people have been killed and nearly 30 suffered gunshot wounds in a mass shooting at a block party in the city of Baltimore. The shooting occurred in the early hours of Sunday in the Brooklyn Homes neighborhood, where residents were holding a street party to celebrate Brooklyn Day. Authorities say multiple shooters were involved and that they are working to identify and find the suspects. The motive for the attack is still unknown. Victims are aged between 13 and 32 years old, and at least half of the wounded are thought to be teenagers. Now, Twitter users faced service issues over the weekend after the platform imposed restrictions on the number of posts that can be read per day. The restrictions were announced by Elon Musk on Saturday in a bid to stop the scraping of potentially valuable data from the platform. Verified accounts have been limited to reading only 10,000 posts per day, unverified accounts to 1,000 posts, while new unverified accounts are limited to 500 per day. Initial limits were stricter, with unverified accounts at one point only able to see 600 posts. The limits came a day after Twitter forced its web users to log into the site to be able to look at content. This previously had not been required. But Musk at the time called the move a temporary measure in response to data pillages. An elephant has been returned home to Thailand on Sunday after more than 20 years, following allegations of animal abuse at a Buddhist temple in Sri Lanka. Named Pearly King in Sri Lanka and Mighty Surin in Thailand, the male elephant was returned at a cost of over $500,000. This comes after reports in 2020 from a Sri Lanka-based animal rights group that the elephant was suffering from years of hard labor and abuse and needed urgent medical care. A later investigation found that the elephant was underweight, had rough skin, abscesses on both hips, and difficulty walking and standing. The elephant was gifted in 2001 by the Thai royal family to serve as a carrier of religious relics. And finally, streets in central London saw the return of the annual Pride Parade over the weekend. But during the parade, police arrested 7 protesters from environmental group Just Stop Oil on charges of public nuisance. The protesters were demonstrating against Pride's acceptance of sponsorship money from high-polluting industries. They stopped the parade by sitting in front of a Coca-Cola float for about 17 minutes before being removed by authorities. Just Stop Oil had previously demanded the Pride organizers to be transparent about the event's sponsorship money and publicly denounce new oil and gas products. Matthew Ashley, Arirang News.
Good afternoon. South Korea's central regions are being hit by extreme heat today, with the highest temperatures in Seoul expected to reach as high as 35 degrees Celsius. Heat wave alerts are in place pretty much in every part of the country today. In Daejeon, south of Jeollanam-do province, saw heavy showers throughout the morning hours. Then from the afternoon, Gangwon-do and Jeollado provinces could see 5 to 40 millimeters of passing rain during the day today. Now, the regions that are free from rain are having very strong UV rays, and there will be moisture in the air throughout the day, which is making things even more uncomfortable. But brace yourselves, after the monsoon season ends, blistering heat and very high UV rays will be the main conditions we're going to have. Now, today's heat wave will be short-lived with rain in the forecast tomorrow, which should continue into Wednesday. Then rain returns at the end of the week on Jeju Island. Now, that's Korea for you, and here's a look at the international weather conditions.
Well, those are the headlines at this hour. We have our panel session coming up right after this break, so do stay with us. Thank you for now.
Welcome. 엄청난 에너지를 춤으로 뿜어내는 나라. 감당할 수 있겠니? I'm live!
저를 도와주시는 분들이
저희와 함께
해줄 수 있는 세션 문제.
아무리 봐도 없지. 텐션 같은데 아니라고 아무도 안 하는 거고.
좋아요.
Contour the world, simply contour. India, the United Kingdom, New Zealand. Woo!
I'm excited. You excited?
Of course.
Yeah.
Music, start.
하나, 둘, 셋.
Hey, Mr. Cupid, look my way. Make sure you listen to what I say. I may be stupid or quite naive.
끝없이 쏟아지는 포토스팟. 휴대폰 한 대로 감당할 수 있겠니? 한국에 오면 먹어야죠. 먹어도 끝이 없는 나라. 감당할 수 있겠니?
Today, that is July 3rd, marks International Plastic Bag Free Day, a global effort to eliminate the presence of single-use plastic bags that was launched in the year 2008 amid concerns about the environmental impact of plastic pollution. So how severe is the pollution caused by plastic bags? What are the government and corporate efforts against plastic pollution? And what can ordinary people do to ensure a sustainable environment?
Welcome to Issues and Insiders. Today we delve into efforts broadly aimed at ensuring a sustainable environment. For this purpose, I have Nara Kim at the Greenpeace Seoul office. Nara, it's good to have you with us. Nara, can you hear me?
Hi, nice to meet you. Yes.
Right. I also have Sarah Period at EA Environmental Action Live on the line as well. Sarah, it's a pleasure to have you with us.
Likewise, thanks for having me.
Right, Sarah, first then, do share with us some background information about the launch of the International Plastic Bag Free Day.
Yes, absolutely. The International Plastic Bag Free Day is a global initiative that aims to raise awareness about the need to eliminate the use of plastic bags. Plastic bags are made of fossil fuel, and there are 5 trillion of those that are produced in the world annually. And they are used for just an average of 12 minutes. So up to 10% of this plastic actually ends up in the ocean, where it takes them then up to 1,000 years to degrade. And plastic bag is really just a small fraction of plastic pollution, but they're really a powerful symbol of plastic pollution. They really represent the short-term usability of plastic, our excessive consumption of it, and also the negative effect that our throwaway culture has on the environment and eventually on our health. So for all of those reasons, the International Plastic Bag Free Day has really an important place to hold, to raise awareness, to educate people, but also to pose and to question ourselves as individuals and also as a society. And it can then be used to address governments and corporations to really take decisive actions, because we know that without immediate action, plastic pollution will triple by 2040. And that's a really deep cause for concerns. Now, many countries actually have already introduced bans and restrictions on plastic bags all around the world. In Europe, for example, 18 countries have imposed bans on thin plastic bags. And there are 23 other countries that require to pay a fee. And those fees, typically of just a few cents, they really allow a drop by sometimes up to 90% in demand for plastic bags. So the bans and fees alone won't solve the plastic crisis, but they do help to change the plastic consumption habits, and they also cause consumers and retailers to be more open to alternatives. And it actually also proves that our addiction to this make, use, discard pattern is totally curable.
And against that backdrop, Sarah, would you say that public awareness about plastic pollution in general has been growing in recent years? I mean, if that is the case also, how would you explain that?
Absolutely. It has definitely grown a lot in the recent years, and it's continuing to grow. And plastic pollution is really a visible issue. If you compare it to climate change, greenhouse gas emissions, you can not see them as such. But for plastic pollution, for most of it, you can. And so it really started. What started making this issue mainstream are first the NGOs that started raising awareness about it, and then media picking up on it and giving it visibility. Those have been really 2 key triggers, and it has had several cascading effects. On one hand, government actions then started actually by banning certain items which were the most visible, littering or leaked plastic. And on the other hand, scientific research and studies have also developed ways to quantify the scale of the issue and also its impact on ecosystems and on human health. And this is where we at EA have been very active in mapping the flows of plastic around the world, from what is put on the market to what happens when it becomes waste. And then when the data are available and that there's really an understanding of the scale of the issue, this is when corporations and businesses can start acting upon it, also pushed by NGOs and consumers' pressure. So we at EA, we see really this awareness continue to rise, but also on new subjects linked to plastic pollution. Because it started with marine plastic, it has evolved then towards awareness of the waste management issue linked to plastic. And now we see the awareness around microplastic pollution rise. So, for example, tire abrasion, textile plastic, microfibers in the air. And while we see even more gained visibility are the issues linked with the additives that are used in plastic manufacturing and recycling, and which for some are actually part of those substances of concern. So this mechanism of cascading effect works. Every stakeholder has a role to play, from NGOs, governments, citizens, consumers, and then industry. And what is key for it to work is a science-based approach. It's also being informed by data and a good governance, so that we avoid then the negative effects of lobbying that could derail progress.
Right, and before we delve further into the efforts available to deal with this pollution, Nara, perhaps you could tell us a bit more about the severity of the problem with regard to plastic bag pollution.
Yeah, I don't think our government, the Ministry of Environment, has the specific data on plastic bags. However, Greenpeace recently worked with Chungnam University's professor team to calculate plastic footprint on several items, including plastic bags. And from our research, we are consuming more than 500 plastic bags per capita in 2021. This is almost 16% higher than comparing to 2017, which we also had the same research with the same professor team. Even though our government doesn't have specific data on plastic bags, South Korea has the third highest plastic waste per capita in the world. Also, according to the government's data, plastics in household waste doubled up during 11 years. This would mean that we are using too much plastics and throwing them away every day without thinking hard where these plastic waste would end up and how. Also, this shows that our government is failing and not having the right direction to get out of the plastic pollution crisis. Most of the plastic bags cannot be recycled along with most of other plastic waste in Korea. That's the biggest problem, and most of the time, if it's not recycled, it gets burned, and which would also harm our environment too.
I see. Granted, there is a lot more that can be done by the government, but for now, though, the government, for its part, it has sought to address the problem of plastic pollution. I mean, there have been some efforts by the government. Could you assess those efforts for us?
Yes, there are many policies the government is doing for dealing with the plastic pollution at the moment. However, from my point of view, the government hasn't been very strict with the plastic policy, considering their behavior on it. Based on how they've been implementing policies, it looks like they are moving backward rather than moving forward, which is very much concerning. And also, it's concerning as the government mostly focuses on the false solutions, such as other ways of recycling or bioplastics, etc. These are false solutions because this wouldn't be much more than waste management. Considering the size of the plastic pollution, we need to downsize the usage dramatically. So we need a solution starting from upstream level, which means cutting down the production and switching system to reuse and refill.
Right, I see. Meanwhile, beyond Korea's borders, Sarah, this past Saturday, that was July 1st, New Zealand says it became the first nation worldwide, that is, to ban the thin plastic bags that supermarkets offer for fruits and vegetables. Now, critics remain skeptical about the impact of this particular ban. Sarah, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, absolutely. So this new ban in New Zealand is actually projected to avoid the use of 150 million bags per year. And it all started with a petition signed in 2018 by 65,000 people. And it is planned to then extend also to most of the other single-use plastics by 2025 in New Zealand. But first, it's important to look at the data for New Zealand. The waste management system there relies heavily on sanitary landfills. In our latest Plastic Overshoot Day report, we estimate that in New Zealand, each person uses about 30 kilo of short-life plastic every year. That's significant, and it mostly ends up in landfill, and actually 10% of the plastic waste in New Zealand is mismanaged. said, critics say that that the ban of the plastic bags are not going to help so much the environment, that it's going to need a lot of effort to adapt to the changes. But banning thin plastic bags for produce does offer large environmental opportunities if, of course, the ban is enforced, but also if it's well accompanied. Because if plastic bags are just replaced by other single-use bags, like paper bags, for example, you would still be in a pretty linear model of take, make, dispose. And let's also not forget that paper sends to landfill emits greenhouse gases when they decompose. So we don't want that. But if, on the other hand, the ban is accompanied by consumer awareness programs to replace those disposable bags by reusable ones, then we go towards a circular economy. And there are loads of reusable options available, but those changes of behavior that are expected from consumers really have to be accompanied and supported. And businesses have a large role to play in facilitating and in adopting these circular models by consumers. So new consumption models have to be tested by retailers, including deposit and return schemes, the availability of reusable bags that can be purchased or rented. And it is a change of practices, but when it's well accompanied, it works, and it has large environmental benefits, both for plastic pollution and also for climate change.
Right, I see. And staying with what Sarah has said, Nara, what more could ordinary people do to commemorate this particular day, that is the International Plastic Bag Free Day? I mean, do share with us about perhaps 3 ways through which we can better partake in this day.
Yeah, there are many campaigns and activities people can easily join. And one of the things would be 용기내, which is be brave and use your own container or bags. This can one of the things we can join and help our environment with small efforts. And Greenpeace is increasing the public to join our campaign at the moment. So anyone can join and try to use their own container or bag. And this can be an activity people can do on International Plastic Bag Free Day. And another activity people can join is per-cook survey. This is an annual survey we are doing with the public, and this year is our 4th survey we are conducting. The participants record single-use plastic that they are used every day for a week and find out who are the most responsible for household plastics. This survey will show that we need systemic change to cut down plastic usage, as there are too many single-use plastics we didn't ask for but are selling with the product no matter what. And also, at the moment, we are having the once-in-a-lifetime opportunity that we could start solving the plastic pollution crisis. That's the Global Plastics Treaty. If the treaty is set up as strongly as possible, this can be an amazing opportunity for us. I hope people pay more attention to this treaty process and watch what our government is doing during the process. Also hope people can support our demand on the treaty to make a better future for all of us.
Right, I see. Good to know. Meanwhile, Sarah, so it's been clarified here during our short talk as well that plastic pollution is horrendous, and based on what you mentioned earlier, it takes centuries for plastic to decompose naturally. But how exactly does it aggravate the climate crisis in your view?
Yeah, there are 2 sides to that, and we need to look at this question with a system-based approach. So advocates of plastic will tell you that if you look at an individual item, like a yogurt pot, for example, it will create less greenhouse gas emissions if you manufacture it in a plastic than in glass, for example, because plastic is lighter and it uses less material. And it is not as such a wrong information if you look only at half of the picture. This is true when you look at a complex and globalized economy like the one we live in today. Because, for example, moving yogurts from one country to 20 other countries require the type of cheapness that plastic offers. And the cost of moving heavy products like yogurt in a glass pot across complicated supply chain is higher if you do it than if you do it in a cheap and light plastic pot. But the point here is that the plastic has enabled the type of consumption that we have today with complex supply chains, with heavy waste too, because when something is cheap, you just care less about producing too much of it and throwing the excess. And this is what we see happening also in fast fashion, where cheap plastic fabric are the enabler of a wasteful consumption with daily new collections and the majority of the production being unsold and simply thrown in dump sites. So plastic enables overconsumption, which would otherwise not be possible. And then there's another aspect, which is the end of life of plastic. So if our yogurt part is incinerated, even with the best energy recovery facility, it will essentially create energy that is made from fossil fuel because plastic are made of oil. And there is a real difference between oil and plastic. So you need to burn actually twice as much plastic to make the same energy as you would with burning oil directly. And we know that in order to keep a chance at limiting climate change to 1.5 degrees, we need to rapidly phase out all usages of fossil fuel. So some might say recycling is the answer, but currently only about 7% of plastics are recycled in the world. And it's in part due to the fact that many plastics simply cannot be effectively recycled because they lose their properties, or if they can be recycled, then it's not in the same material because there's food safety concerns, for example. So for the state of plastic recycling as it is today, there are very few types of plastics that can really reduce the demand for new virgin plastic and when they are recycled afterwards. And as such, that again does not help us reduce the demand for fossil fuel that is feeding the climate crisis.
Right, I see. And Nara, keeping in mind what Sarah has just said, do you suppose the government could do more perhaps with regulations towards the corporate sector, or even perhaps to rally greater public support to fight plastic pollution?
Yes, as I've mentioned before briefly, our government's policies are not strong enough. I hope our government can implement much stronger policies, including cutting down production and system change to reuse and refill rather than encouraging recycling or alternative for plastics. Also, hoping the government opens up and hear our various opinions. At the moment, they seem to only be open up and hearing out about the industries only, not hearing from NGOs. Lastly, and very importantly, our government should be supporting a strong and legally binding plastics treaty, which include cut down production and reuse and refill as a solution. Our government is one of High Ambition Coalition member, and I think they need to act like one. And at the moment, our government's stance on the treaty is very weak and only focuses on the false solutions, unlike other High Ambition Coalition members do.
And Sarah, beyond efforts by the government, as mentioned by Nana, can we, as simple consumers and perhaps ordinary citizens, promote stronger action against plastic pollution?
Absolutely. There are a lot of things that citizens and consumers can do to promote stronger actions. First, with our consumption, of course, we can reduce our consumption, become more circular using refill and reuse models. Those are all things that do work. But most importantly, we can support the local organizations that raise awareness about plastic pollution and that campaign to hold governments and corporations accountable. The one thing that we can all and should all do is becoming aware of the reality of plastic pollution in the country where we live. And this is with this goal in mind that EA has developed the Plastic Overshoot Day. So the Plastic Overshoot Day is the day after which humanity has used up all of the plastic waste management capacity available for the year. And globally for 2023, this day will be July 28th. It means that all of the plastic consumed in the last 157 days of 2023 will be mismanaged and will end up in nature. Now, each country has its own Plastic Overshoot Day, and each country contributes to a part of those 157 days of plastic overshoots. And we have grouped those countries in 10 different profiles so that we can give recommendations as to what countries can do to reduce their plastic overshoots. And as a consumer and as a citizen, this country data is important to know, as well as how much of the overshoot our country contributes to. So, for example, in Korea this year, Plastic Overshoot Day falls on October 30th. And in the Plastic Overshoot Day report, you will learn that in average, inhabitants in South Korea consume about 48 kilograms of short-life plastics every year. That's 2.5 times the global average. And you will also learn that Korea contributes to 24 hours of those 157 days. So as consumers and citizens, awareness is really key. So you can start by checking out plasticovershoots.earth and then helping spread the word. Yeah.
Right, good to know. Nara, some businesses here in the country have also pledged to take tangible action against plastic pollution. What more can you tell us?
Many Korean companies often publicly say they will put more funds into new ways of recycling, such as chemical recycling or investing more money on bioplastics, etc. However, these are, again, only the false solutions. Recycling will only give us a little bit of more time, but will not solve any of this problem, because recycling is one of the ways of waste management, not more than that. But we need fast and dramatic change to get out of this crisis. Also, we've already witnessed that recycling is not working.
Sarah, I believe your expertise, and do correct me if I'm wrong, lies in working with businesses to ensure a sustainable environment. What more, Sarah, can you share with us about such related efforts?
Yes, indeed, and maybe building on what Nara just said, many businesses have made pledges to redesign their packaging to make them more recyclable, reusable, integrate recycled content in it, etc. And that's a step in the right direction, but the current pledges alone are definitely not enough. In fact, if you combine all of those pledges, it only reduces about 7% of plastic pollution. And that's because plastic production is expected to double by 2040, and that would result in this tripling of plastic pollution. So there are several other few key things that businesses can do. First is working on improving their circularity. So it means shifting their business models from make, use, dispose to reuse, refill, repair, and rental models. And those are business changes, business model changes, but they anyway need also those changes to meet their climate pledges. And in parallel to this, companies need to shift their focus from looking at what they put on the markets to what their actual plastic footprint is. So in essence, in the same way as businesses already measure their carbon footprint, they need to start measuring their plastic footprint. In other words, how much plastic is ending up in the environment as a result of the company's activity. And understanding their plastic footprint allows them then to become aware of which products leaks in which geography. And the reason I know that this is a great starting point is that I see those aha moments on the faces of our clients when they see the results of those assessments. And we know, this quote, what you cannot measure, you cannot improve. Well, companies need those information before they can take the right decisions. And with just a quick example, for example, with the plastic bags in South Korea, out of every 20 plastic bags that are used, one will be mismanaged and will end up in nature. And if you look at another country like the United Arab Emirates, it's almost 9 plastic bags out of 10 that will be mismanaged. So a company that is active in both Korea and UAE needs this information in order to focus their plastic pollution mitigation efforts effectively. And then, as Nara was saying, supporting the business treaty is really key. Businesses can actually join the Business Coalition for a UN Plastic Treaty that is led by WWF and Ellen MacArthur Foundation. And this is really a great way of using business for good.
Right, I see. Well, Sarah, I hope we'll have more aha moments in the very near future then. Thank you so much for your time and your thoughts today. And Nara, thank you very much for your insights.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Right, well, that ends Monday's edition of Issues and Insiders. Thank you for watching. See you same time tomorrow. That is Tuesday.
welcome. (24시간) 불이 꺼지지 않는 나라 감당할 수 있겠니?
Hello, I'm Arirang Müller, Ambassador of Slovenia to the Republic of Korea. Right now, I see Korea shining in the world. Korea has many strengths and the global presence is already here. Slovenia will continue to establish the presence in the international scene. This is also one of the reasons why we opened the embassy in Korea last year. I always thank Arirang TV for playing a big role in promoting Korean information to the world so that many people can access Korean content and get to know all aspects of Korean culture. I hope that people around the world will continue to communicate and sympathize with Korea. Resonating the world, Arirang.
Arirang TV is conducting a quality and satisfaction evaluation to enhance the broadcast service for viewers worldwide. Please visit our website www.arirang.com to provide your honest opinions.